questions. So, first question I wanted to ask is how the smartphone OS market is evolving, both globally and within the region. I guess this is sort of mainly directed towards Liwa and Praveen, if you guys want to sort of kick us off with this. How are things changing, and what's the future look like in terms of the smartphone OS market?
Well, I think it's only one direction for smartphone industry is growing, and that's the good news. It's growing very, very strongly across markets. We see that in all countries, more so in the Middle East. Major trajectory in terms of consumer adoption of different smartphones. On the OSs, I think it's user experience is really the defining feature of the consumer choice of smartphones. And obviously apps are playing an increasing role in why a consumer decides to buy a particular device. So that's defined by user experience. And so I think in terms of app developers and people in the apps industry, it's good news. Smartphones, the growth is picking up.
Okay, Liwa, do you want to?
Fine. I will try to tackle it from BlackBerry perspective. We are engaging so much in developing our operating systems. We started from BlackBerry 5, then we moved to 4.6, and we introduced last year DB7 with a new user experience and liquid graphics for the screen, and we enabled the touch devices. So the operating system in the market is completely changing rapidly, and users are becoming more demanding. If you don't approach mobile users with new technologies, you'll be phased out, and that put pressure on the handlers and the platforms to have more, let's say, creativity in terms of operating systems. And in September this year, or late October, we're also introducing the BlackBerry 10 operating system. It's a new, fully fledged mobile experience that combines the latest technologies and operating systems between tablets and handsets. And we are still evolving and introducing new elements of our operating systems. As you mentioned, the near-field communication, the NFC, the augmented reality, the digital compass, it's all new technology that you have to embed it in your operating systems to make your device more, let's say, smarter. At the end, the market is really what you used the mobile for 6 years ago. It's a completely different experience now, and this put a hell of pressure on the platform side to have more innovative ideas and more, let's say, more engagement with the user.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask us, what about backward compatibility? I'm wondering if a lot of the developers here are thinking, okay, so we've got new OS versions coming out. Is my app gonna, if I build for the new OS, is it gonna work for the older ones? What can you tell us about that?
Let's take a quick answer for that. We have the HTML5. I call it our hero because we have our WebWorks application for HTML5 that run in all our operating systems. So we always encourage developers to be smart in optimizing their resources and go for the HTML5 because it's not just backward compatibility, it's forward compatibility. It will run in BlackBerry 5, 6, 7, BlackBerry 10 playbook. So you can have this unique development code using HTML5 with the possibility of having native features within the application that run in all our platforms. If you want to go for Adobe, it will run only on the playbook. If you want to go for Android, it also will run on the playbook and the BB10, but it will not run on the old device. So in HTML5, it will give you the windows to have in all platforms. Okay.
I think that's a very important issue in terms of fragmentation of the OS, and that's a very key concern for most developers and publishers. I think most of the OS platform industry is moving towards one direction is obviously convergence. This multi-screen convergence will force the different OSs to standardize in that form. But I think most people are aware of it in terms of the most strategic direction on OS development is going to consider that we need to ensure that developers are happy with the future and backward compatibility. So at the end of the day, it's about what's the addressable market. You have to sell the addressable market to developers. So choice of platform, choice of learning the tools is based on what's the addressable market. And if that is fragmented, you will not get the attention of the developers. And so this is a serious matter which is being addressed, I think, quite carefully now.
Okay, great. And let's move on to the next question here, which is, how are the platform providers helping local developers here? we've talked a bit about that. I know all of you have basically said in your keynote speeches a little bit about that. Do you want to expand a bit more, or perhaps even give us sort of, three steps, what local developers should do in terms of taking things forward? And then perhaps we can ask Salah from a local developer point of view, your experience on this. Yeah, let's start with Salah. Salah, perhaps you.
Right. First of all, I'd like to mention something about the development community that we have over here. We don't get much of developers gathering, and we don't get to meet you guys. I mean, you guys are now here and you're talking, but we don't find you everywhere, right? But Microsoft has been very forthcoming. We've been supported by Microsoft greatly, and in getting our app in the marketplace and getting featured everywhere as well. It's really important for developers to really get support in terms of training. If we're new to a platform, we need to know what are the limitations, what surprises we're going to get in terms of development and what kind of needs we're going to have. So, and the second most important thing is having access to devices. I mean, platforms come and then newer versions of SDKs come, okay. But getting to experience the devices firsthand is the most important aspect of development, because developers could work on emulators, you could test your designs, you could have mock-ups, you could have prototypes, but if it's not really being used and tested on devices, you cannot come up with that perfect user experience. So yeah, that's what's required from you guys. Come on, do it.
First of all, soon we'll be developing for BlackBerry. I think you will be developing for BlackBerry. But I totally agree with what you said. I just joined RIM in June last year. So RIM is totally aware of that, and we are bringing more resources to support the developers. At the end, our users need the developers to have more applications, more content to our devices, and our role in the community is to support the developers. We are considering, while we are speaking, to have two major developer hubs in the region, one in KSA and one in UAE, where developers have access to all our SDKs, all our devices. You have a lab that can support you whenever you have an application, you want to test. We also seek out devices for developers, data devices for our Alliance program developers. So all what we ask is you believe in our platforms, enroll to our program, present the first step from your side that you believe in our platform, so you enroll in our Alliance programs for free, and then we provide the next steps. We are building it in the region, and I totally agree, we need to do more because we have to present the full support for the developers. Just quick 3 steps. We have the developer community in our website. You can enroll to it, and you can have full access to our SDKs. You can download all our SDKs for free. You can start developing tomorrow. Step 2, Alliance program. Enroll to the Alliance program. Alliance program is designed for the people that believe in the success of our platforms. If you believe in it, we will help you to make it happen. For the Alliance program. Third, take my business card and contact us.
Shield, do you want to add something else?
I think that. Okay, so I think there is also a change that we need to recognize at the level of the applications that are being developed. In the past, we used to develop generic applications that were pretty much similar to what you could find anywhere. So it was more about having an app store and access to an app store that gives you access to these applications. And that in itself was already an innovation, because before you didn't use many apps on your phone in the time of just pure Java support. So this is step 1. The second step is that the fact that these platforms are, these phones and these, the technology in terms of networking, in terms of the ability for the platform to sense your direction, your location, your environment, are bringing also a local dimension to the application. Enables applications that have to do with the local environment. This, combined with the growth that we have at the local level, in terms of the integration of IT, integration of mobile into our everyday life, like the Dubai Mall applications or the RTA application, the N parking application that I have on my Windows Phone, for example, is very useful. All of these applications bring us basically a local dimension that fosters the need for developers. And hence we recognize that need for the developers, and we need to address it, whether Nokia, Ray, Qualcomm, etc. We need to address that need. But beyond this, I think it's important to realize that we do not need just to bring applications that are kind of me to things that have been done elsewhere, or that enable things in a very standard format. There are very interesting articles about the Muslim Facebook coming up, for example. There are ways to do things at a cultural level, or for example, just using augmented reality. By definition, this is a local application, because by definition, you are pointing to something that is local, that is not 5,000 kilometers from here. So all of this is fostering a need for local development, and we do not need just to follow. We have great innovators in the region, and we have great ways to innovate. And this is, I think, the focus we need to have, because if we just look into trying to redo what has been done, we're going to stay behind. We can innovate in the way we do things, and we have capabilities, we have the brain power, and we have the technology for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo most of the comments made here, but I think I agree with Saleh. I think the challenge really is that the state of the industry in this region, compared to, say, if you look at a Silicon Valley kind of area or development hubs, there is an established industry which allows, or there are platforms for people to come together. I think intent of all vendors and platforms is always to work with local developers. We all make the same sums, right? We all say the same things. But I think the state of the industry and how can you reach the right people is the big challenge. For example, for us, we run developer training every quarter. You probably never heard of it. And then we run the developer training, we get 100 registrations and 15 people turn up. But so it's an evolving state. I think it's part of how this industry, local industry will mature. I mean, conferences like this, forums like this help to foster that, to spread the message, because we have the same thing. So we will have regular training, we have funding patterns for innovation, local innovation. So any app or idea which has local relevance as well as innovative technology, we have ways to make that happen. Now that is marketing support, development, funding support. So there are three pillars in which we want to support developers. There's design, develop, and distribute. Design is about UX, training, and seeding devices, getting devices in the hands of people. So we have pool of devices which you can borrow. And we have developers who work closely with us who have 6-7 devices with them. It's in perpetuity, it's there because they're developing apps regularly. And then you have, how do you give them access to SDKs? And that's simple, it's all on the web, the portal is there, but then you need somebody to sit across the table and address some issues. You want someone, the comfort factor of having someone to, get you connected to somebody who can solve some problems. So yesterday we finished a 2-day workshop in Cute in the Nokia office. We're running an app competition in 6 universities in the UAE. And so these are efforts that keep happening. But I think it's about how do we get this message across to the right audience, connect the two groups. And hopefully we'll be more successful in that in the future.
I just want to comment on one thing over here. We had an experience with HP when we made Carbon for WebOS, and there were days that they wanted to launch their new tablet. Back then, the HP touchpad that failed big time. We all know about it. So we needed the device, and they didn't launch the product, but and they wanted our app to be on the tablet as well. So they sent us the product beforehand, before they even launched. Okay, they made us sign a lot of NDAs here and there, don't take it out of the room, and all that stuff. But we had access to the device, right? Now, for example, we were talking about getting Carbon that we have in Windows Phone for low memory devices, such as the Lumia 610, right? Like, developers in US would get access to that. The same goes for Android products, right? Or even Windows 8 that is coming out, right? Stuff like that I mean, developers over there get access to those firsthand before anyone else. They go to the conferences, they get those hardware, so they get their hands on it, and they could just develop something for that quickly before the platform actually evolves and launches, right? We don't get that kind of support over here. I mean, it's a shame that we could get things done from US, but we couldn't get done anything from this side, right? I mean, Microsoft over here has been very, very responsive and supportive, but I think this is what we need over here, first-hand development support. I mean, if you guys want to really grow this industry, I mean, you guys are the key players, right? That's what you need to do, man. Support us.
That's excellent. Yeah, really good. I mean, when you just said there, Praveen, you know, design, development, distribution, I'm kind of hearing that it's not necessarily that. It's more about you know, resources, hardware, kit, as well as, you know, a hell of a lot of marketing and promotion. You know, it's all good and well building, as many of us know, a great quality product if you can't get people to download it. And the platforms can help a lot with that.
Yeah, I think marketing comes and distribute, and the devices and support comes under the develop kind of a vertical. But I echo what Silas says. I think it's a chicken and egg thing. When you look at, for a global company, looks at global priority and say, okay, we have 3,000 early devices to give out, obviously the attention goes to Silicon Valley. But that's something we want to change. That's what people like us to sort of keep pushing back and getting this highlighted, that if you want to grow the local industry, we need to support developers with early access. So we look at the Windows 8 kind of a time frame, there is a clear recognition within Nokia that we need to do things which are different, things like you mentioned. Can we get devices in your hands before it's out in the market?
Okay, shall we move on to another topic? Something that a lot of people talk about, cross-platform or multi-platform. Just to make the distinction there, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I see cross-platform as developing a product which runs on multiple devices. I see multi-platform as a different strategy where you build for one platform and then you build for another platform and you build for another platform. So that's what I think multi-platform means. So cross-platform is a product that will run on more than one device. Multi-platform is developing for multiple platforms. So let's throw this to the panel. You know, who thinks what on this? Can I, let's ask Salah, what do you think?
I think if you want to just define cross-platform development right now, across all the mobiles and devices, you're talking about web and nothing else. Because even if you use web technologies like HTML5 or whatever framework that you could use to develop apps, right? If you're using the same thing to run on all of them, you're going multi-platform. I mean, we really don't care about if it's accessible everywhere or not, but we're really talking about how it's made, right? So cross-platform. Why would you make a cross-platform application, first of all? Okay, that's first, you would be talking about your resources, which are web developers in the first place. There would be those guys who are going to make cross-platform applications for you. And whether they're going to run it on mobile web browsers or just package them as applications, that's a different story. Going multi-platform, as you define it over here, is a little bit tougher because you need to understand every platform differently, the frameworks of development, you need to study the user experience of each one of them. While on cross-platform development, you just make one interface, one user experience, you just seed it to every device, every platform, and that's it.
But what about the limitations? For example, you know, can you do location-based services as well as you can with a native app? Can you do things like integrating with the camera, integrating with the contacts, integrating with messaging systems like BBM, integrating with, you know, contacts, calendar, these sorts of things? You know, are those possible with web, either web apps or web
Actually,
browsers?
yes, they are. And back in the day, okay, if we just talk about pure mobile browser applications, yeah, nowadays we do have access to all that. We have access to location, we do have access to storage and databases, so you can have a lot of like persistent data on your applications and actually interactive kind of stuff. But if you're one of the developers and you want to go cross-platform, you could actually have access to all of the hardware. Camera, location, whatever you need, and that's just by using one of those, you know, middleware frameworks that are out nowadays. So, for example, WebWorks is there for BlackBerry, right? There are other stuff for every other platforms, like HP released their Enyo framework that was basically for WebOS, now works everywhere else. Now, utilizing all those with tools like PhoneGap and those services, you could do all those sorts of stuff. So there's basically no limitation on that end, but it all depends on how you want to really utilize it.
So are you suggesting the only reason people would build a native app is because of the resources they've got in-house?
Exactly that. And no, not only that, but you could add performance to that and expertise, because you would have deep integration into the system, while web is just another layer on top. So you're going to have performance, like you're going to have a degraded performance on that end, but you would have access to everything.
Do you agree, guys?
Mostly I agree, but I just want to add one thing. WebWorks for HTML5 on BlackBerry, cross platforms, on multiple platforms, everything, and it has native applications. But I want to bring the story of Wikitool. Wikitool is one of our latest applications that launched in the world, and Wikitool runs to a fully pure native BlackBerry applications using our BlackBerry Java and integrated augmented reality with BBM integration. And they saw an opportunity that works fine for BlackBerry users with BBM integration and augmented reality. And they offer the application natively because once they introduce the fully BBM integration and offer the application in a pure native environment, they had 200,000 downloads in 1 day. So it's about the opportunity you recognize for yourself. It's about the users of the mobile. Nokia users have certain elements in the market. They are quick, they are young, they are active. So there are some type of applications that really fit for Nokia users. So if you want to build it native for Nokia, you can build native for Nokia. BlackBerry users have the BBM feature where they want to estimate messaging, so you can go native for BlackBerry. It depends on your concept, on your idea. You can run multiple platforms and you can run fully native. It depends on your let's say, goal of the application.
In a sense, I tend to agree. I think it's not all black and white, and it really depends on the type of applications you are trying to develop. I think when you go cross-platform, you do get basically the developed ones run on multiple platforms. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that the developer needs to focus on is the end user experience. Because what is making the end user use an app versus another app is the pleasure he is getting out of this application. The reason why people use an iPhone is because they get pleasure out of it at the end of the day. So this is, I mean, let's not eclipse that fact. The end user experience is very important. To get an end user experience, you have to do a lot of optimizations. Like Liwa was saying, this is where you might need to go native versus just at a very high level where you can go cross-platform. What is interesting is that there are now kits, and Salim was referring to some of these kits that enable you to bring a common middleware across platform, or enable you, like for example, in the ones I had mentioned, AllJoin is a common middleware that enables peer-to-peer connectivity on any platform. So you don't have to go and develop specifically for any one of these platforms that connectivity layer. It is available across platforms. In the case of augmented reality, for example, you have tools like Unity 3D that will allow you to develop applications for Android or for iOS straight from the Unity 3D. And you do get a cohesive end-user experience through these tools. And these are very sophisticated, high-performance applications. So you do have solutions, but it really depends on the type of solutions you are building. If you're building an application that is very much focused on web resources, then yes, you can just go HTML5 and go across. If you are developing an application that is very sophisticated in terms of, for example, like the ION one, or that needs to draw more on the platform performance, then you have fragmentation across the users of the platforms, And you need to bridge that fragmentation. And this is where you use the middleware and the SDKs.
Okay, thank you. So it seems to be about resources and skills, seems to be about system resources of the device and the efficiency of performance, and it seems to be about demographics, user experience, and what people are going to want, and what people are going to pay for, and the value that they get out of the end product. Abbas, do you have anything you want to add to that? Is there anything, for example, your readers, do they have any opinions on this?
Sure, just one of the things that I want to quickly bring out is what about the security aspect of native versus HTML5 or cross-platform? An application called The Path recently received a lot of criticism for accessing the address book of your iOS device and uploading the data to their servers without really asking the end user. So I mean, when you guys are looking into developing applications, how does that fit in? The security aspect of it, I mean, native versus HTML5 or an SDK usage, how does that kind of, work between different platforms and devices? So how do you guys tackle that?
And not just apps like Path. There's also the operators. What are the operators doing in terms of collecting data? There's been a lot of talk about that. Anyway, Praveen.
I think it's back to the same thing. It's really about what user experience you want and what kind of application you're building. And I think today users are not very sure when they download an application what the application does. And very often it accesses things in your phone, and it comes with, I think, consumer knowledge and more awareness. You don't know, you connect to the net, you have there are a lot of applications which address your messaging and chat application, which is really picking up your whole database, and it's sitting in some server somewhere. But it's a conscious decision you make. It's difficult to say in terms of will a native application resolve that, but there are certain things a native application can't do, because if it's total update, you want to keep connected, it's refreshing all the time, you need to be connected out onto the web, and the risk is always there. But I think that's where app stores come to play in terms of making sure when you do the quality assurance of these applications, you sort of look at consumer interest. And so if you're looking at third-party stores which don't go through a QA process, I mean, I think a lot of the criticism with Android has been this fact that security element is very risky there. But if you look at most of the other standard app stores, look at the QA is very stringent. You go through, and consumer feedback is also taken into this thing. I also want to add on the earlier discussion is on app usage is, I think, a very critical part. I mean, today everyone measures downloads. At the end of the day, you could have 300 apps on your phone, and what are the ones you use, very often. That comes to local relevance and also user experience. So native versus web will you be connected all the time? Do you want to spend so much data on using an app all the time? Would you prefer a native version which gives you the same performance or a better performance? So I think these are other factors that you need to work on.
That leads us on to another question, actually. Should somebody that has an app and never uses it, or hardly ever uses it, pay less than somebody that has an app that uses it all the time? Now, it's very interesting. I know a number of you are working on a sort of pay-as-you-go utility type model, which I find very interesting. I would expect and I would be happy to pay for an app that I use a lot because I get value from it. And if somebody else doesn't use it, maybe, why should they pay the same as me, sort of thing. And there are these subscription models coming, Lee, you mentioned, I believe Nokia doing stuff as well. And now that the payment mechanisms are easier with things like carrier integration, do you think there's going to be more of a pay-as-you-go model? And the other thing, another question we've got is on piracy. And maybe this gets around this problem of piracy. Is if you hardly ever use it, you shouldn't pay. But if you use it a lot, you should pay. What do you think?
I think that is an emerging trend. We've seen that with a lot of our success in revenue generation for developers has been what we call the premium model. So you try something, you like it, you can pay for more levels or for more days. You try for the number of days or number of times you use, and then you pay more if you like it. And then subscription is another way to address this. Okay, if you want to use it for 1 month, or you want recurring use. So that solves a couple of things. One is that you are able to measure engagement, how many times are people using it, is your app being used? And secondly, it's for consumer, I will only pay for it if I really like it. Because there are a lot of Me Too apps as well. I think that's another issue. A lot of the utility apps or convenience apps, there are multiple versions of the same thing which do the same thing. So how does the consumer make the choice as to what are the ones I use more? So will I pay for, and you're reluctant to pay for something you don't know what it does. So the premium model is working very well for us. And I think gaming is the area which is really leading the business model in this, because the adoption of, that's a category where consumers are most willing to pay for something. And that's where you can really deepen your revenue streams by giving them a trial, and you allow, once they like it, they pay more. And you bring in technology into that. For example, we had, with our Bell devices, we had Angry Birds with NFC. So you can tap with NFC to unlock more levels. And you can do that with, different kinds of use cases. So, interesting, I think for developers it's good news. If there's more adoption of this with consumers, this is a great revenue stream for publishers and developers.
Okay. Anybody else want to say something?
I think security is an extremely important topic in mobile, and it's going to get increasingly more important. One of the reasons is that you do download many more apps on the mobile than you do in the PC. And one other reason is that the app stores, some of the app stores are completely open and you can download it from anywhere, you can download some of these apps, etc. The fact that the phone is very convenient, that today you would love to have, if you don't have it already, your banking interface on your phone. The fact that you don't know that new other application that you are downloading, whether it is going to basically upload your data, as you say, to another place, brings a very important point to light, which is the fact that you cannot achieve security in software only. In software, you can hide things, but you cannot achieve security in software. In order to achieve security, you need a hardware-based security, and that gets you back to the platform. The ability of the platform to really lock the data that you have in a way that is not accessible. And then you can go into all the levels of security that you need at that point. Whether it is applied for DRM, whether it is applied for your sensitive data, whether it's applied for, DRM is about word to understand, I mean, for the protection of your application, protection of your content, etc. But at the end of the day, you need the hardware-based security in order to bring that security level that is needed. Otherwise, it's easy.
Before I just jump into in-app purchases and piracy, just comment on the security over here. We're talking about privacy, first of all. The case with Pat, for example, was something about privacy of the users and how developers are supposed to respect that. And before we talk about security, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's the app stores or marketplaces or whatever Play, now all these names that we have, Apple and Movie Store, you guys rebranded. So it's their responsibility to make sure that data is not being accessed without users actually agreeing on that. So that's first, and then developers have the biggest responsibility. And of course the users, I mean, users have to really know what they're downloading, what kind of application and what applications have access to. Now when it comes to security, most of the platforms have some sort of encryption mechanisms. Like for example, BlackBerry has one of the best. Microsoft is about to implement, and I think Nokia has something similar as well. So those things are there. I mean, we have seen banking applications right there, but of course, there's no 100% secure system anywhere. But at the end of the day, we need to make things better. So yeah, that's how it's going to go.
Final word from Labor on this one. Just want to comment quickly on the security issue. BlackBerry platforms are always known with its security encryption. And that's it's our goal since day one. Just to add for you, Abbas, yes, native applications have better security capabilities, have better protection for the user than open platform applications. So that's why sometimes we advise banks and insurance companies when they develop for BlackBerry, they go native, so they can have the full security elements within their applications and encryption embedded within the application. So that's why sometimes you have to go native. You need more involvement from your core services. And just want to add for the pay-as-you-go and in-app purchases, the market is really educating us on the best practices. We will have to give the credit for Apple. Apple created the story of application. Everybody knows that, and they've done the whole 9 yards in this. So we learn from their experience. Whenever you want to monetize an application, you have to get the user to test Yes. So I always recommend for the developers, make it as free trial base. You try the application, you get used to it. If you like it, you buy it. So you don't need to always force the user to buy your application before even trying your application. It might be a crap. We have so many incidents that applications were sold for $10 and it was worth nothing. So I always advise developers to go for a free version, free trial. If the users, that put the challenge on the developer. If the user likes your application, he can buy the full version, pay as you go, and carrier billing and subscription models are excellent and great. But always give the user the freedom of experiencing your application before offering it for purchase.
Just one last point. Just one last point on the piracy aspect. I think the piracy of apps and the piracy of content is always going to be there, right? Now, the problem is if you do not develop at a level, as Liwa was saying, that gives you that protection for the content, then initially the value of the app dilutes by itself. You need to be able to have in the platform the capabilities to protect that content, to protect these applications. Imagine if on the App Store you had a very easy way to crack an application, maybe by jailbreaking a phone or whatever, then basically you can have access to so many applications, and these applications are for free and they get completely diluted. And the value for the developer runs away. So it's extremely important to have these levels of protections that Saleh and Liwa were talking about in terms of the ability to protect the applications, both for enabling the content on some platforms. Like Netflix, for example, would never bring their HD content on a mobile platform just by putting it in software, because essentially it's a conduit to get their content for free. This is one example.
Okay, thank you. And for native apps, I think a publisher would argue that's what they're giving up 30% of gross revenues for, is partly to do with security. We're running out of time, I think. We're running late, so trying to get us sort of slightly back on schedule. I just wanted to know, does anybody have any questions or anything they want to say? Do anybody disagree with anything that anybody said here? I can't really see very well, so yeah, we have a question back there. Thanks, Hitesh. Up at the top there. You have to speak very loudly and hold the Microsoft close to your mouth so that we can hear you. Thanks.
Hello everyone. My name is Mohammed Ghania. I'm a founder of a company called Science in City. You have been talking about security. What do you think about using biometric technology on mobiles to enhance the security level, especially for banks and those companies who got sensitive data? Thank you very much.
So that's a very good example. For example, one thing that you can use today when you have your smartphone and you want to access your banking application, the banking application can just access the camera and look at you. And if you are yourself or if it is someone else accessing your application. And this can be done just using whatever is available on the platform and the SDKs that are available. And this is one extra layer of security that is being brought through some kind of biometrics that doesn't add any cost to the platform. The platform, the cost is already factored into the camera. It is being spread across the usage for the camera. And basically it's a kind of biometric functionality that you can bring on the platform just by verifying that it is yourself.
Anybody else? Yes. For this example too, I've seen a solution in Italy where the banking application is using a fingerprint on the touch device. So it's also another element of security. It depends on the application and the provider itself. But as Julie said, the platform has to be secured in the first place. Secured means it provides you with capabilities of having extra elements of security within your application. If the platform is open for piracy and it has the minimum level of security like XYZ in the market, you cannot expect so much level of security for your application.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Mohammed, for your question. Any other questions? Anybody? Anybody disagree with anything that's been said so far? No. Okay. I'm thinking, Abbas, Hitesh, do you want to break now? To have a brief interval before we come back for the awards? Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. One final question before we go. It's a question from me to Abbas. How many software engineers does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's a hardware problem. So everybody, let's have a 10 to 15 minute break, and then we'll come back in here for the awards. Thanks very much.